Just Baseball Show is live. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be getting your podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you're watching on YouTube or X, or with our friends at SportsGrid. Here's what we're going to do. Aram is joining me for the first 10 minutes, and then Peter is going to join me for the next 2 segments, and then Aram is going to be back to talk about Kazuma, Okamoto, and then Peter is going to be back. So we're bouncing back and forth a little bit, but this show is going to be centered around the 2 guys that come over from NPB in Japan, Nippon Professional Baseball. Tatsuya Imai signed a 3-year deal with the Houston Astros. It maxes out at $54 million. Sorry, it doesn't max out. Incentives can push it beyond that, but it is a 3-year $54 million deal with opt-outs in essence. And Kazuma Okamoto is a Toronto Blue Jay on a 4-year, $60 million deal. We're going to start with Tatsuya Imai. I won't waste time because this is really the breakdown element of the show right now. We'll also talk about the fit in Houston with Peter. But Aram, I want to open the floor to you on Tatsuya Imai. You were shocked, I know, by the total money allocated to Imai. You thought he could have gotten double this cash.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought he was worth it. At least I understand, the hesitation because of how unique he is. We just put out a video on our socials. Podcast P and I got in the lab, and I mean, it's so much fun talking to Peyton when we start making these videos. But the whole genesis of the video was Tatsuya Imai is one of the most confusing players I've evaluated, and I feel like, and for better and for worse, that's kind of the case with him. But I felt like even with the confusing, there was enough there that you felt like, okay, this guy's going to at least be, a number 4 starter. And I think at best can be a number 2 starter, that it's worth investing $100+ million into a guy like that at 27 years old. But I understand, given the fact that he cut his walk rate in half from his career average this past year, he lowered his arm angle, and that allowed the fastball to play better at the top of the zone. But that was something that we only have 1 year of success with. It's a slider that Stuff Plus models aren't going to love, but it clearly works, but there's not a lot of precedent there. And then you have the questions with the changeup, and being both the changeup and the splitter. But I just think the fastball and slider are going to work. I think he's going to find a way with that changeup. And I love the landing spot of Houston, where they've done such a good job with developing arms, getting more out of arms over the last handful of years, whether it's a veteran who's kind of losing something on his fastball that kind of regains some shape, or a Hunter Brown who adds a sinker and tweaks his arsenal a little bit and now looks like one of the best young pitchers in baseball. So I love the fit for Imai. The Astros clearly were keen on bringing him in, even with, it most likely only being a 1-year deal. And I will get into the structure of the contract, but I think it sounds funny, but I really do think, based on the structure of the contract, that the Astros are very bullish on Imai, and that, some other teams probably offered more money, but this is a really good contract for the player here, which we'll get into.
Yeah, so Tatsuya Imai is represented by Scott Boras, which I'm sure had something to do with this. By the way, this show, as always, brought to you by our great friends at BetMGM. This is a 1+1+1 deal. So if you were to go to a website like SpotTrack, you were going to see that Tatsuya Imai signed a 3-year, $54 million contract. Based on the forecasted values that Imai was going to get, you would sit there and say, well, the Astros got an absolute steal here. You mentioned that it works in Imai's favor because if he performs at an adequate level in Major League Baseball, he's effectively getting just over $20 million for his first year of Major League Baseball, and then he can opt out and get a bigger payday. There is precedent to that with Scott Boras clients, right? We've seen Carlos Correa do that with Minnesota. Lo and behold, he goes back to Minnesota. We've seen Cody Bellinger do that with the Chicago Cubs, and then he does it again, and now he's on the open market again. This is an opportunity for him to re-enter free agency at a time that maybe more suitors are interested in acquiring his services. This is a weird point. We're almost at an inflection point in Major League Baseball with the CBA coming to a close after the 2026 season. There are a lot of teams and probably a lot of decision makers that are looking at the free agent market saying, well, I don't want to be strapped into something that isn't going to make any sense with the new collective bargaining agreement. This is an opportunity for Imai to make his money, be successful, and then hit the market again when a lot of teams have clarity. It seems like this is totally skewing in Imai's case.
Absolutely. And I think even the performance bonuses as well. Like, you can get an additional 3 million in 2026 for reaching 1 million for each threshold of 80, 90, and 100 innings. But then the other crazy part is if he reaches those thresholds in 2026, his 2027 salary increases by 2 million for each level, up to 6 million total as well. So it seemed like those were just mild safety nets for the Astros, but also maybe trying to give Imai a little bit more reason to opt in, because it seems like right now at that number, if he has anywhere, I think, below a mid fours and shows that he can handle a workload north of 150 innings, I imagine Imai is going to opt out. And that's the thing that I think the Astros were okay with. But what's really crazy to me is that this is effectively was a 1 year, 20 something million dollar deal, right? But then they also have to pay the full posting fee, the Astros do, because of it's based on the potential earnings, the potential guaranteed earnings of the deal. So even though it's potential guaranteed, which sounds like an oxymoron, it's guaranteed because Imai could, unfortunately undergo Tommy John surgery, opt in, and that money's his, right? So I think that's the really fascinating part. So effectively, it was a 1 year for like $31 million deal, assuming that he throws pretty well, because I think the Astros would prefer that. Because if it's not a 1 year, $31 million deal, that means he's kind of holding them hostage for the rest of the deal, because he's opting into a deal that means he's pitching well below, the qualified offer value and all of that. That's the other wrinkle that's really, I think, interesting about it is I think the Astros are also assuming, well, he's going to throw well. He'll probably opt out. We're going to QO him. Maybe he takes the QO. If he doesn't, we get the draft pick and we can still try to sign him back. They probably won't. The other aspect is I don't think any other team was willing to pay that, posting fee.
Yeah.
That would be so substantial for a 1 year deal. But for the Astros, they were, because all they ever want to do is stay below that luxury tax. They went above the CBT once. They really want to reset it now. The goal is to do that. The posting fee doesn't count towards the CBT. So that was the big focus for them as well. I love the fit for the Astros. It's clearly them saying, we're going to go all in on the upside here of this year, given that we had a couple areas to fix with our rotation. Burrows felt like a safer trade addition. Imai feels like a higher variance, and that's a good thing for them. I think they need more upside in that rotation. That's what they get here, and I think it's a good landing spot for a guy with a low release, high carry fastball. And even if it's not as high carry as Javier, the carry is what plays up. I think they do a good job with those archetypes of pitchers, and I love the landing spot for him. The only question is long ball. That was the one thing I could see being a little bit of an issue for him. Crawford box is there, but the good news is I was more concerned about the long ball against lefties. He really does dice up righties with the fastball and slider, and the Crawford boxes, of course, benefit righties.
Yeah, 100%. We've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. So I do just want to ask you likelihood that you feel like this guy is an innings eater for Houston, because the incentives are tied to workload. And this guy over his last however many years, I'll start in 2021, this guy threw 163 innings, then 158 innings, in 2022, he was injured for a bit. It was just under 80 innings. But in 23, he bounces back to 158. In 24, he's at 173. And last year, he's at 163. I know that there's an acclimation process as it pertains to Major League Baseball, but when you have those innings totals over the last 4 or 5 years, you feel like this guy can absolutely check all the boxes he needs to as it pertains to incentives.
Absolutely. And I think that was something that people were understandably like, wait, is there something health-wise that we should be concerned about because of those incentives? No, I don't think so. I think it's really just a safety net for the worst case scenario. Because again, it already skews so much in the player's favor. He either makes the 20 million this year and opts out, or it goes worst case scenario and he can kind of hold the Astros hostage. So I think that was just a little bit of a safety net for a few $1,000,000. He's been able to handle the workload. He got a little bit tired at the end of this past year with, I think he struggled with heat stroke. And it wasn't quite the same over the last month or so. But remember, those innings totals, it's about 20 games less. So it's probably a few times less through the rotation that they play out there. It's a pretty good innings pace for Imai. And by all accounts, he seems very capable of handling the workload. And I think that's what they also need over there in Houston.
How hot does it get? I have no idea. Like what?
Oh, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's like some stadiums, I think they call one of them literally like a sauna. And it might be where he called home.
I had no idea, but Tatsuya Imai has this 3-year, $54 million deal, now opt-out incentive laden with the Houston Astros. He's coming off of 160-plus innings and a 1.92 ERA in Japan. We're going to get Peter Appel's thoughts in a moment. Stay with us on the Just Baseball show. As always, it's presented by BetMGM.
Like Alabama, right? Is there a team that scores more than Alabama? No, right? But they're actually an under team over the last couple of years because their numbers are so high. You get these Americans in Queens College or Denver. Who the hell's betting on them, right? Nobody. So the lines stay low. They're just like, no one's hopping all over them. But every time you see an Alabama game, you're betting over, but you're losing money because the numbers are so big.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
He's out again. Anthony Davis is injured once again and is going to miss time with the Dallas Mavericks for a minor groin strain. Likely will miss a few games. And I don't even know what a few games is to Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis seems to always be missing time.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe if the Raiders draft Mendoza, they don't want to rush him into it. Maybe the Colts want Rodgers to be the stopgap in between Daniel Jones coming back. Maybe the Cardinals need to figure something out. Maybe the Browns, if they don't draft. None of that to me feels a 0% chance. I just think it's interesting.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I know exactly what Patriot Nation is screaming this morning. It's Drake May time. Give him the trophy. MVP. Stop it, please. Just sit down. Yes, Drake May has had a nice season. But let's be real. He has played a JV schedule of defenses. He is carving up the easiest slate of defenses in the NFL this season. Congratulations on your beatdown of the Jets.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
We are back on the Just Baseball show, and Peter Appel is going to talk to us about Tatsuya Imai now. We got Aram Leighton's take on the guy. I do want to transition into the Astros as a whole, and I guess I want to start with a yes or no question. Do you feel like the Houston Astros are done with their starting rotation? Yes or no?
I think they could be done, but I would like for them to add more just because this rotation looks boom or bust to me. Hunter Brown is anything but boom or bust. You got your lockdown ace at the top of the rotation. But Christian Javier has shown flashes of greatness, but dealt with injuries. Tatsuya Imai, we're going to talk about him. You already talked about him in the first segment. First year coming over from Japan. Don't know exactly what you're going to get. And Lance McCullers Jr., when he's on the field, generally speaking, it looks good outside of last year where he was returning from an injury. And Mike Burrows, who threw less than 100 innings last year for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if they are done, I get it. Would I like them to add an arm that makes you a little bit more comfortable? Yes, I would. So to go back to the first question, do I think they are done? No, because there are a bunch of one-year deals for pitchers still out there on the market.
So for me, I would like to, as sad as it sounds, not see Lance McCullers Jr. in the forecasted rotation for the Houston Astros. And you mentioned he's coming off of injury. When he's been on the mound, he's been good. Well, we haven't seen a healthy Lance McCullers in years. It's been a long time at this point. This guy was dealing with major arm issues. And Lance McCullers, when he did come back, he did not look like the Lance McCullers of old that got a near 9-figure deal with the Houston Astros. So I can appreciate Mike Burrows as the 5, and I think that he is a great opening day 5. But if you're trying to piecemeal 20% of your starts together using a depleted McCullers or an AJ Bluebaugh or maybe a pitching prospect right now that's coming up, or even a Jason Alexander or a Ryan Weiss, that's just not good enough for me when you have Yordan Alvarez and Isaac Paredes and Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa in your lineup, and Yainer Diaz and Jeremy Pena. This lineup is win the AL West and contend for an American League pennant caliber. The bullpen, I think even if they do move Brian Abreu, can probably be win the American League caliber. They have guys pop out all the time. I'm just thinking this rotation might not be win the American League caliber as it stands right now. And I love Brown as a 1. I do. But I'm with you. Like, there's some nerve there especially as it pertains to Javier. Javier, how confident are you that Christian Javier is like a clear-cut 2 for a really good team in 2025?
Well, here's the thing. Veterans of this channel know my relationship with Christian Javier. He is my boogeyman. He is my boogeyman. As a Yankee fan, I famously was not too afraid of him, even though he continued to dominate us. And I continued to get my head shoved into the dirt every single time he took the mound. So we all know what Christian Javier looks like when he's fully healthy and using that fastball up in the zone with that incredible breaking ball. He has the talent in order to throw a abbreviated no-hitter in the World Series. These things have happened, but we haven't seen that same Javier now in what seems like a few seasons. So I think that this rotation has the ability, right? If things work out, if Hunter Brown is pitching again at a Cy Young level, if Christian Javier returns to what he was, if Tatsuya Imai has an ERA in the mid to high 3s and is able to eat some innings, Lance McCullers Jr. comes back and is reasonably healthy, and Mike Burrows really takes a next step as a solid 5 starter, this has that boom potential where if the bullpen works out and the lineup does what we think, they could run through the American League. Now, the bust potential is real because you could have Hunter Brown at the top and then a lot of unknown. You look at the steamer projection, which you can find on Fangraphs for Tatsuya Imai. They think he's going to pitch to a 4.37 ERA next year. And you might think to yourself, that's a little bit high. I had higher expectations for him coming over. Number one, first season. You're adjusting to a new ball. You're adjusting to a new program, new teams, new stadiums, new country, new environment. But the biggest thing that I noticed outside of what Aram noted with the home run problem is the walk problem. 3.66 projected strikeouts per 9. Or excuse me, 3.66 walks per 9. Only 4 other pitchers in Major League Baseball did that last year. It was Gavin Williams, Jose Soriano, Dylan Cease, and Yusei Kikuchi. What was a common theme with them? ERAs in the high 3s and the low 4s, outside of Gavin Williams, who, when you look at his underlying ERA predictors, all of them were within the 4.2 to 4.4 range. So if he can get that walk problem under control, he can get that ERA down. But if he's walking 3.5 per 9, it's going to be really hard to navigate major league lineups, especially in your first season stateside.
Podcast P made a great point in our private chat function here on the back end. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, on X, and on SportsGrid. No lefties. And it's not like we're asking for them to reunite with Framber Valdez. We're not asking them to go get Ranger Suarez on a 9-figure contract.
Yeah, we are.
I'm not.
I want him.
Jose Quintana for me is a fair ask.
Agreed.
Given what they need, like Quintana is totally a fair ask. And I think Jose Quintana could thrive as the 5 for the Houston Astros. I've got a lot of confidence in Mike Burrows blossoming to being a 4 for the Houston Astros. A 3 is probably too lofty an ask, but this guy has really good stuff. So if you tell me that you are running out a regular season rotation of Brown, Javier, Imai, Quintana, Burrows, and you're running out a postseason rotation of Brown, Javier, Imai, Burrows, I feel pretty darn comfortable with that. We've got about 90 seconds left in this segment. The Blue Jays we will talk about at length in the coming segments here. I think that they have not only put up the best offseason in Major League Baseball, they should be considered a them versus the field type of team when you look at the American League, because the American League is wide open and the Blue Jays are the ones that have taken steps in a positive direction. The Astros are probably the team leading the field right now. And if they take one more step, would you disagree with me when I say that they're probably the second best team in the American League?
The American League is wide open. You can put them wherever in that top 5. And I would understand that lineup was without Yordan Alvarez for a lot of the season. They're looking good. Go check out their roster on Fangraphs. It looks good.
It looks really good. And Jeremy Pena has blossomed into a top 10 consensus shortstop in baseball. Yainer Diaz, it's a thin catching position in the bigs right now, but he is a consensus top 10 catcher in the game right now. However they may use Isaac Paredes, I love the fit of Isaac Paredes in Houston. And if he is trade bait, then he can get them a really, really solid arm, whether that is in the rotation or in the bullpen. So the Houston Astros are going to be fascinating to look at. We are going to get to those Blue Jays that just signed certain someone, Kazuma Okamoto, to a 4-year, $60 million contract. That's coming up next, right here on the Just Baseball Show.
Let's play a little buy or sell. I think it's pretty evident that despite being one of the best tight ends in the history of the NFL, Travis Kelce's play and physicality and everything, with all due respect, took a big step back. This was easily his worst physical season of all. He just didn't look like himself. Travis Kelce will retire after the season. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm probably 60-40 on this that he retires. The only thing I'd say that maybe he returns is because he doesn't want to end the way it ended, not making the playoffs and that sort of thing. But let's just say for Giggles, at Mahomes, he isn't going to be ready for September or October. And unless they get a really good veteran quarterback, maybe he doesn't want to deal with that either. Go through a training camp, and he may not make the playoffs either next year. So I'm probably 60-40. I think he's done. Too bad. Hall of Fame career. I guess good luck with Travis Swift and your podcast with Jason.
I'm buying this. Andy Reid addressing this question this week. Why? He could have just deferred and said, I don't know, we'll see. Fully answered the question about this maybe being his last game. What does that tell you? He knows. Everybody knows. I'm not 60-40, 90-10. I'm on buy. Bo Nix versus Caleb Williams. You'd rather have Nix over Caleb Williams in a dynasty league?
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to go Caleb here, mainly because he has more running ability than Nix. I think he'll also stay healthier than Nix. I might like his receivers more as well. He's got Dunze, he's got you got DJ Moore, you got the good tight ends here. Probably do lean towards Williams here. Not by a hell of a lot. It wouldn't be an easiest choice here, but I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here.
I would agree. It's not that I think that Ben Johnson is a better coach than Sean Payton. I think Ben Johnson is better for Caleb Williams than Sean Payton will be for Bo Nix. I think running is going to be a big part of what Denver does in the future. So there you go. I'll sell.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Okamoto, a 4-year, $60 million contract. Okamoto puts pen to paper for with the Toronto Blue Jays. These are two guys that have clearly won over their fan base within the first 24 hours of the ink being dry. Tatsuya Imai goes to a Houston Texans game before he even puts pen to paper with the Astros. And then Okamoto is going down a slide on a video that the Blue Jays post. And, they both have in English rallying cry for the fan base ready to go at their signing event. Okamoto seems to be a really fun addition to the Toronto Blue Jays. And we get into who the player is with Aram momentarily, but I want to start with your thoughts on this, Peter. This guy was clearly a sought after bat on the free agent market. And there were teams that popped up. The Pittsburgh Pirates seem to be rumored to be interested in Kazuma Okamoto. There were plenty of other teams, but it's Toronto that's the one that gets it done. Why do you feel like Toronto was the one to put their hat in the ring and come out victorious?
I think what Toronto has done this offseason is operated in a market where a lot of teams are hesitant and they see this offseason as their lane in order to build a team that could not only make the World Series once, but be a perennial World Series contender. And, you already have the moves with Dylan Cease and Tyler Rogers and Cody Ponce, and now you add Okamoto to the fold. Now, for 4 years and $60 million, you're hoping that he could be a middle of the order, maybe 5-6 hitter in the lineup,
Leighton is back,
giving you consistent production. We're dealing with what's going on here?
No, we're good. We're good. We're fine.
Dealing with you want a guy in the middle of the lineup who can hit you 20 home runs and hit between 270 to 280 and not strike out a lot. And he fits right into what the Blue Jays want to do. Their contact driven identity, right? What made the Blue Jays so good? Obviously they could hit for power, but with 2 strikes, the ability to take a walk, the ability to fight with 2 strikes and not strike out. That's what they're getting with this guy. When you compare him to Munetaka Murakami, which is a big bet on his ability to hit for power, and even Aram came on and said that there's the potential that it's a 20 hit tool and an 80 power tool, where with Okamoto, we're likely looking at 50s and 55s across the board, and that fits right into exactly what Toronto wants to do. And when you look at his projections on Fangraphs. The bullish projection has him at a 115 WRC plus, which means projecting him to be about 15% above league average. But it's the home runs that jumped out to me, Jack. We've seen him hit 30 plus home runs in the MPB a bunch of times. But normally when you come over, that power doesn't necessarily translate like we might think. 27 home runs from the Bat X, which has won numerous awards for accuracy. So when I looked at a potential comp for him, I actually looked at Ian Happ's season last year, where it's about a 250 average. It's a pretty high OBP, decently high slugging in the 430 range with 23 home runs. Now, I don't think he's going to walk at a 13% rate like Ian Happ, and I don't even think he's going to play defense at the level that Ian Happ will. But I think that's the type of bat they just brought in.
Interesting. Aram is going to present a different type of comp for Kazuma Okamoto. What I will push back on is he didn't walk too much in NPB, and Happ is a high OBP guy because he will walk and he will see some pitches. I will say Kazuma Okamoto, like the power numbers coupled with the bat to ball ability and the batting average numbers are encouraging for somebody that may not be playing every day. And you look at where this lineup stands right now, and after they sign Okamoto, you're saying, okay, are they still in the hunt for Bregman, Bichette, Tucker? Apparently they are. Bob Nightingale reported that they are still in the mix for, one of those three big names on the free agent market. Then people become more expendable. Who's the kind of guy that you move out of the equation to fortify a different piece of your roster? Is it a Joey Loperfido? Is it a Davis Schneider? Is it a Nathan Lucas, who was really good for you last year as a corner outfield bat? He's a good defensive corner outfielder too. I have no idea which way they're going to go here, but it seems like there is someone that could be an odd man out. Is it going to be Miles Straw? Miles Straw was a nice, feel-good story for them last year, but you're probably not going to hurt too much and lose too much sleep if you're, ditching the Miles Straw experiment here. They are so darn deep. And I understand that Tyler Heineman is not the best backup catcher in baseball, but this bench is really good. They've got reinforcements hanging out in AAA Buffalo at the beginning of the year. This is as good an offensive situation as you could possibly ask for. So I don't know, man. This jumps out as a super duper encouraging thing for me, for Toronto and for Kazuma Okamoto, finding the right spot for him. The reports are that he's going to be a super utility guy for the Blue Jays. We've got about 30 seconds in this segment. Slam dunk, best team in the AL, no contest, yes or no?
I think they have to do that going into the season, and I think Ernie Clement's going to be the odd man out, and they will sign Bo Bichette, bring back the core.
That's crazy. And then they should absolutely be the leader in the clubhouse in the American League. We'll be back for more Okamoto thoughts in a moment on the Just Baseball Show.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Sometimes those coaches do get the axe regardless of what the owner said just a few short weeks ago. And sometimes, Joe, you can't have it both ways. Like a Jets fan, you probably want them to tank. They're doing a really good job of that by not even being competitive at this point. But at the same time, you sort of want it to be, yeah, we're not competitive winning games, but it looks like we have a future. We might have found our quarterback. We got a good foundation. Nothing is going right.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box, but I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
LeBron James gets that news today. What is today?
Today's his birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry? The greatest birthday gift that LeBron James has ever gotten is the reality, the smack in the face that he's no longer an all-star.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Aram Leighton is back, and Aram Leighton is here to do a player breakdown on Kazuma Okamoto. Okamoto signed a 4-year, $60 million contract over the weekend with the Toronto Blue Jays. This came up against the deadline for him to sign with a major league team. It's a 45-day posting window for these guys that are coming over from NPB in Japan or the KBO in Korea. And Okamoto worked it until the final 24 to 36 hours of that posting window, and he finds his spot in Toronto. And we're going to get into the fit, I guess, and where he'll play, how often he'll play a little bit later on in this segment. But I just want to start with the kind of player that Toronto is getting. When this deal initially came through, I was like, oh, they get a slugging third baseman. They're good. But there's so much versatility with all their other guys. And it seems like Okamoto has some versatility in his own right. What do you feel like Toronto's getting in Kazuma Okamoto?
I think the ability to be creative. And that's what I like about it is, I'm still really fascinated to see what they do the rest of the offseason, but they've clearly set themselves up to where they can do a lot of different things. They can mix and match this lineup because of what you alluded to. And we'll talk about the exact ways that they can maybe mix and match it. But I love, like, you're up against it a little bit and teams are trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? I don't want to sign X player if we're also in on Y player because they overlap with each other. Okamoto with a firm deadline here, which we don't really have. There's no such thing in an MLB free agency aside from guys who get posted. If anything, there's the opposite. It's almost encouraged not to have a deadline there. You have to make that decision. But why I love the Okamoto signing for the Blue Jays, but any team who would have signed him, is it doesn't stop you from making another addition, right? Like, because you can move him to first base. You could keep him at third. You could put him in left. And I think that's the part that is really exciting for a Blue Jays team that's clearly not done. I mean, we'll see what happens, but they clearly are not done trying. And Okamoto is a guy that doesn't just anchor one position and you say, all right, I guess we're out on, X or Y players. So that's why I love it. I love the fit there. And then from the perspective of, like, I think about Okamoto to the Pirates, that would have been great. But that's not a guy that I think is, especially in year one, going to sit in the 3-hole for you and put your offense on his back. Like, I think it's a guy that's going to be a really solid complementary piece and a solid 6-hitter or even a guy that you put in the 2-hole against lefties, whatever it may be, but be a really solid above average complementary bat. And then maybe by year 3 or year 2, you start to see those pops more. But in a lineup like Toronto's, he doesn't need to be anything other than that, 6-hitter for them that I think is fits the mold really, really well, which we'll get into.
Yeah. So I was thinking about $15 million a year. Do you want this super utility guy? And that's what the report is about Kazuma Okamoto, that Toronto is still fully invested into the Bichette run and the Bregman run and the Kyle Tucker run. Toronto is looking to put their team over the top. And to be honest, with the additions they've already made this offseason, I thought they have. Like, I feel like we'll go into next year saying this team is probably the best in the American League, and they have a, darn solid chance at repeating as American League champions. But if they grab a Bregman or a Tucker, or they retain a Bichette, they bring him back, this team is undeniably the best team in the American League. And then I was thinking about $15 million for Okamoto. But then I looked at the other guys that are making north of $15 million a year. And it's not like all of them are middle of the order mashers. Like, look at Andres Jimenez, who is also a Toronto Blue Jay. He's probably going to play shortstop for them. Andres Jimenez is making 15.2 this year. Christian Walker has been pretty disappointing for Houston after year one. He's making 20. Jorge Polanco is making 20. Ha-Sung Kim, who just signed back with the Braves, is making $20 million.
Yep.
There are guys that are like 6-hitters that are making the 15-ish number on a per year basis. So I guess if he plays 120, 130 games and he bounces around a little bit, whether it's, the DH spot if Springer cycles into the outfield or they're getting him a day off. If he plays third base a lot, maybe he plays some first base to get Vladdy in the DH spot a little bit. It makes a lot of sense at that price point, given the production that he's, put up in Japan.
100%. And that's why, I thought he is like a $60 million player. Like that would be the value I think you put on a player like him. But I was wondering if the bidding might get driven up just because of that. Like he can scratch so many different itches you may have as a general manager. And it's funny when I was trying to think of like a comparison for Okamoto. There's not really a clear cut one. I think there's some like say a Suzuki light to the offensive game, but they're very different defensively. Obviously, I think Suzuki gives you more power, but I was looking at Suzuki's data when he was in NPB. It's different balls. They've had weird, trends in that regard, but it wasn't that much more substantial, if at all, than Okamoto's. And Seiya has been a really good bat. The other thing that I thought was interesting is with the way that Okamoto can play third, play corner outfield, and now even plug in at first, he's not all that different from Addison Barger, who the Blue Jays obviously really like. And you think, well, if you already have Addison Barger at home, why bring in another? I think they're going to platoon, and I think they're going to platoon as well as anybody in Major League Baseball. And they have different options to do that. If you end up doing the Bichette thing, I don't know what they're going to do defensively there. That'll be fascinating. But I just think about Clement and Jimenez, who are both fantastic defenders. Of course, Clement more at second and third, Jimenez anywhere you put him. Jimenez was almost unusable against left-handed pitching. I don't think there's a reason in a lineup that deep for him to ever see left-handed pitching. You know that the Blue Jays typically prefer to maybe not have Barger face lefties as much. Maybe they'll even want to shield Varsho from time to time. They can get creative now in the ways that they want to do that because they have, an absolute lefty killer in Okamoto, who this past year, I know it was a smaller sample size, but 1,100 OPS, and through his career has hit lefties really, really well. So Nathan Lucas doesn't ever have to see a lefty either. They can really platoon their way to the more desired matchups that put them in a really good spot. You don't always have to, though, at the same time. Like, these are good players that can face lefties and righties. I think Barger's just fine left on left if you want to try to get him out there and battle. But like Ernie Clement, probably not a guy that you even want to see righties that much. He destroyed lefties. So now you have a team here that is only going to get better from within because you're going to put these already pretty good players or good players in positions to be great more often. And I really like that fit. And Okamoto allows them to do that. I think Okamoto's a guy that you're not going to short platoon, obviously, but he can play a different position in your mash lefties lineup. He allows you to move some things around a little bit more.
Yeah. Kazuma Okamoto, since 2018, is a 22-year-old in Japan. Home run totals, 33, 31, 31, 39, 30, 41, 27, and 15 in 77 games this year. He's coming off of injury. But this guy, like over his last couple of years, his last, 3 full seasons, let's play that game, 252 with 30 homers, then 278 with 41 homers, then 280 with 27 homers. The thing that is more sustained for him in Major League Baseball when it comes to the batting average of the home runs is what?
I would say it's tough because he does such a good job of pulling the ball in the air, and the exit velocities have consistently been above average. But it's hard to ignore the bat to ball skills as well. I would say it's a cop-out answer, but the blend of both. Like, I don't think either is going to be off the charts. But if you're average to above average hit tool wise and average to above average power wise, you're going to be quite productive. I think the most interesting thing to follow, and I think this is the biggest separator between he and Seiya Suzuki, is the approach. The approach isn't bad by any means, but I want to see swing decisions that are generally plus, and Seiya's were plus, and you're only going to see better stuff that's harder to decide against, right? So that's something to monitor that I think could degrade the hit tool, in collateral a little bit. But I think what's very clear is he's going to mash lefties and he's going to hit the ball hard. And if you look since the start of the 2021 season, he's a 940 OPS against lefties. My biggest question is, yes, he can play these different positions. How well? Because that's going to be from a WAR output. If he's slightly below with the Willie Castro thing, right? If he's like slightly below average at a bunch of different spots, still valuable, but not as valuable. If he's a good third baseman, passable left fielder, a great first baseman, that's very valuable. So I think that's going to be a fun variable to monitor with Okamoto as well.
We've got about 45 seconds. Yes or no, quick reason why. If they do nothing else, if they don't bring back Bichette, if they don't sign Tucker, if they don't sign Bregman, the Toronto Blue Jays should be considered the favorite in the American League.
Yes, I think so. I mean, the pitching got better, and it's only going to get better. And like I said, even with the way that the offense is set up now, they can platoon their way to more success.
Another yes or no. Toronto has had the best offseason of any team in baseball.
Ooh. Yeah, I would say so.
I think yes. The Pirates are probably second relative to expectations, but I would think Toronto has had, in terms of getting Cease and getting Cody Ponce from the KBO and now Kazuma Okamoto, it feels like they have put up the best offseason in baseball, not even to mention Tyler Rogers in their bullpen. We'll be back to wrap up the show with the last two segments next on the Just Baseball Show.
LeBron James gets that news today. What is today?
Today's his birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry. The greatest birthday gift that LeBron James has ever gotten is the reality, the smack in the face that he's no longer an all-star.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
He's out again. Anthony Davis is injured once again and is going to miss time with the Dallas Mavericks for a minor groin strain. Light League will miss a few games. And I don't even know what a few games is to Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis seems to always be missing time.
Pro basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
I know exactly what Patriot Nation is screaming this morning. It's Drake May time. Give him the trophy. MVP. Stop it, please. Just sit down. Yes, Drake May has had a nice season, but let's be real. He has played a JV schedule of defenses. He is carving up the easiest slate of defenses in the NFL this season. Congratulations on your beatdown of the Jets.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
I want to pose to you, Peter Appel, that final question. Have the Toronto Blue Jays put up the best offseason in Major League Baseball to this point? Yes or no?
Yeah. I don't even think it's really a conversation either, because not only did they bring in good talent, they brought in needs, right? The Blue Jays, I think, need is a strong word, but they definitely could have used a top of the rotation guy like Dylan Cease. And was it a little bit too much money? Maybe. Was Okamoto for $60 million? Maybe a little bit too much, possibly. But here's the thing. There's multiple reasons why I don't really care if it's a little bit too much money.
Sure.
Number one, I think the idea of bringing a guy into Canada and that's the reason that you have to pay them more money, I don't believe that. There are a lot of great cities. Toronto's a great city. I think it has to do with
exchange rates. Yeah. Keep going.
I think it has to do with the fact that they have to pay more income tax. So you're going to have to give them a little bit more money because they're going to have to pay a little bit more in tax, right? So all of these guys are going to be a little bit more money than the market might give them. But reason number two, I don't really care. Rogers Communications has $2 billion less, at least according to Forbes, than Steve Cohen, right? Steve Cohen is way above everybody else at about $21.8 billion. Rogers Communications projected 19.6. So they have the money to do it. And we saw what happened with Anthony Santander. I think he's going to bounce back and be a really solid outfielder for them. I think he's going to refine the power. I think there's potentially 30 to 40 home runs still left in that bat next season. But we saw them sign him to a big multi-year deal. And not only did it not affect them at all, they've gone full bore this offseason.
Yep.
Right? You have Anthony Santander to a $100 million deal and it doesn't work out. What do? You give $200 million to Dylan Cease. You give $30 million to Cody Ponce, who the last time we saw him in big league action, he was getting ousted with the Pirates, right? Yep. Tyler Rogers, they give him near a closer type deal for a guy who's not expected to be their closer. And then Okamoto gets the most money of any Japanese free agent. But it's okay. They can do both. And there are reasons why the amount of money for Toronto doesn't really matter to me. And what also makes me more excited that Bichette and Tucker are on the table.
Yes. The Toronto Blue Jays have been as good as really any team in baseball at pursuing the free agent market so far this winter, and there could be more to go. But as we transition, I do want to talk about the trade market and what could happen there, because it seems like there are plenty of contenders in Toronto's division that are entertaining the trade market right now. And there were plenty of names that popped up in reports, whether it was Joe Ryan in Minnesota at the beginning of the offseason, but Minnesota seemed to shut those down. Freddie Peralta, who is also on, I don't want to say on the block just yet, but reportedly being shopped right now. Mackenzie Gore could be being shopped right now. I have no idea. We saw reports come through the other day from Ken Rosenthal and Will Salmon that the Yankees and the Marlins were chatting through an Edward Cabrera possibility. I won't get too deep into this here, but I read the reports, same as you guys. Ken Rosenthal reporting and Chris Kirshner reporting as well that the Yankees are talking to Marlins about a potential trade for Edward Cabrera. It seems like the Yankees are going to go that way. Instead of big ticket free agency, they're willing to acquire some starting pitching via trade. And Cabrera is a guy coming off of a mid-threes ERA. Freddie Peralta would be a guy coming off of Cy Young votes. When you saw Edward Cabrera and the Yankees linked, what emotions did you feel?
Bittersweet. And the reason it is bitter is over the last couple of seasons, when I watch Edward Cabrera pitch, we all have our guys where we don't necessarily enjoy from a viewing pleasure, right? In 2023 and 2024, he was often injured, the amount of walks that he would allow. And it almost frustrates me more when you see top end elite stuff feel like it's getting ruined in a way, right? I get to watch a 94 mile an hour changeup, and I'm thinking to myself, is that the best pitch in Major League Baseball?
It got up to 96, 97 last year.
Exactly. And then he throws a 99 mile an hour fastball and it gets pelted. And you're just thinking to yourself, how is this even possible? But the sweet side is made big improvements last year. You see it on the screen. 3.53 ERA, 137 innings, 150 strikeouts. The command got a little bit better. He's still allowing hard contact, but he was in the zone much more frequently. And you started to see what Edward Cabrera could become. But again, the reason why it's bittersweet is how much do I want to buy into that? Because he still has a fastball problem. His changeup, his curveball, his slider, they're all disgusting. They all get whiffs. They keep the ball on the ground. But his fastballs have generally been, let's say, hittable, right? Last year, I think opponents hit about 370 against his sinker. His fastball over the years has been a pitch where opponents hit over 300 against it. But the Yankees could be a match made in heaven because they've done a really good job at refining your mechanics and fixing fastballs. I think the perfect example of that is Luke Weaver. When he came over, he was a failed starter. It was a super, super buy low deal. And in year one with the Yankees, he goes from throwing 94 miles an hour to 95.7. And then that just continues to get better. And they refined his mechanics and he looked like a much better pitcher. And they've done that for multiple guys. Another guy that comes to mind is Clark Schmidt, where they've been able to fool with his fastball. So could the Yankees be looking at Edward Cabrera and thinking to themselves, all right, he's already got 3+ breaking balls. The fastball is a problem. His mechanics are a problem. Keeping him in the zone is potentially a problem. Those are things, generally speaking. It's not perfect. No team is. But the Yankees are better, I would say, than the average team at fixing those problems. And with Edward Cabrera, because he is a inconsistent guy, the price for him wouldn't be as much as a Peralta, as a Gore, and as a Ryan. But it is a risk. It absolutely is.
The point that I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad that Peyton pinged us on this, is the usage is so evenly spread out. He throws 5 pitches pretty much 20% of the time. The lowest usage is the four-seam fastball at 13%. The highest usage is the changeup at 26%. I see a world, and even if he's a Marlin, if he's a Yankee, if he's somewhere else, I see a world where that four-seam continues to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle to the point where it's a show-me pitch and the sinker is his primary fastball. That curveball is one of the best curveballs in Major League Baseball. It is disgusting. It might be the best starter curveball in Major League Baseball. It's high speed. It's sharp. It bites like crazy. he also had a change in terms of mentality that upped his command. He was shooting center cut. He was like, I'm filling up the strike zone until I get to 2 strikes, and I'm spinning guys out of the strike zone. And it worked. Edward Cabrera blossomed last year. I really do not think it was a fluke, and we will see if these reports intensify as the week goes on. We'll wrap up the show next, right here.
It's going to open up Pandora's box, but I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Sometimes those coaches do get the axe regardless of what the owner said just a few short weeks ago. And sometimes, Joe, you can't have it both ways. Like a Jets fan, you probably want them to tank. They're doing a really good job of that by not even being competitive at this point. But at the same time, you sort of want it to be, yeah, we're not competitive winning games, but it looks like we have a future. We might have found our quarterback. We got a good foundation. Nothing is going right.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
By talking about some of the other reports that we're seeing right now around the trade front. We do have one free agent signing, Tyler Mahle, officially a San Francisco Giant. Good for him. Good for San Francisco, I guess. Mahle on a 1-year deal. We were talking about the possibility of Mackenzie Gore. It feels like San Francisco is pretty much done now that they have their guy in Tyler Mahle. Okay, that's fine. Edward Cabrera, we were just talking about the reports of Cabrera and the Yankees allegedly being in the same sentence. The Yankees and the Marlins talking about a Cabrera trade. The other guy that has jumped to the forefront of trade reporting is Brewers ace Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta is coming off of a season where he was receiving Cy Young votes. He was an all-star. This guy was one of the best right-handed pitchers in baseball and one of the best pitchers in the National League. Clear-cut Brewers ace. The Brewers trade aces. They traded Corbin Burns. They've traded aces and closers before. And the teams that allegedly have interest in Freddie Peralta, both New York sides, the Dodgers, the Braves, and the Red Sox. What do those guys have in common? It seems like they're willing to mortgage the future to capitalize on the present. The team that intrigues you most is blank among this list of 5, because I have a slam dunk answer.
Well, it's the Yankees because I'm a Yankee fan. But if I want to,
it's the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah,
it's the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but if I'm actually being objective, he fits so well with Atlanta because you look at Atlanta's rotation, and there are certainly some question marks, and Freddie Peralta is anything but a question mark, right? He's been one of the more consistent pitchers in Major League Baseball. But when reports like this come out, I always want to ask myself, are Brewers fans doing okay? But then I remind myself, of course they are. They are so used to this at this point, and I venture to say they don't really care if he gets traded, because I'm sure they were really upset when they saw Corbin Burns on the move. Didn't end up mattering. They were very upset when Josh Hader got moved. Didn't end up mattering. Devin Williams didn't end up mattering. Now, the Brewers have not seen a ton of postseason success, but they're always in those buckets, and it's all about getting to the postseason and then seeing what happens. And the Brewers have also been a top-tier organization at creating a pitching funnel, right? Corbin Burns goes out, Freddie Peralta steps in, Freddie Peralta goes out. Maybe it's Jacob Mizorowski. Maybe it's other guys in their rotation. So this is what the Brewers do. We're used to it at this point, and more often than not, they end up on the right side of all of these trades.
I just wonder who Milwaukee would want as the focal point of a Freddie Peralta trade return. I would totally understand if they sided with the Mets in identical deals, because in return they would get one of the three big pitching prospects, right? They would not get McMullen. McMullen is pretty much untouchable now for the New York Mets. But a Brandon Sproat or a Jonah Tong could be a headliner of a Freddie Peralta trade return. And that would make a lot of sense to me. The New York Yankees, I wonder what they would pursue. Is Elmer Rodriguez Cruz their best pitching prospect? Is he enough to be a headliner of a Freddie Peralta trade? I have no idea.
I think he's
The
enough
Boston
to be
Red-
I think he's
Which
enough to be a headliner, but there's going to be more. Like with the Mets, I'd rather have Jonah Tong. And you tell me, would you rather have Sproat or Elmer Rodriguez?
I'd rather have Sproat.
Okay, that's fair. So I assume he would be, and then two other guys, while the Mets, they could do Tong and
One more.
Sproat and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll see what Milwaukee entertains. But Edward Cabrera and Freddie Peralta are the two that seem to be reportedly getting the most trade buzz as it stands right now. And we could see trades go down this week. We may see nothing. We are at that point in the MLB offseason. Last thing for you, real quick. Big Christmas has a new home. He was a waiver claim of the Baltimore Orioles. So happy for Big Christmas. Happy for Baltimore. I'm stunned that he made it that far down the ladder of waiver claims to get to the Baltimore Orioles. This guy, hits the ball a mile. I'm really excited to see how he fits in Baltimore, if he fits, because he may just get DFA'd and cycled again. But this had to be the most fun DFA ever, where everybody saw that Noel was designated for assignment and 29 other fan bases went, yeah, he could be a great Rocky. Yeah, he could be a great Yankee. Yeah, he could be a great Royal. He could be a great Padre. Every single fan base was in on the Junkency Noel thing.
Maybe except Guardians fans who saw that he was striking out at a 40% rate.
Who cares?
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, you're bringing him in. It's going to be fun if he can hit a couple of home runs, but more likely than not, he is spending most of the year at AAA. But I'm rooting for him because if he is good, he's one of the more exciting power bats in baseball.
I'm rooting for him too, man. Happy New Year. We've got about 50 seconds left. Do you have a New Year's resolution as it pertains to baseball or just personal or no?
I'm pretty fat. I got to start losing some weight. I got to eat better. I'm not much of a drinker, so it's not like that. It's just eating late at night. So basically after 8 p.m., I am done eating. That is my New Year's resolution. I'm getting fat. I got to be better.
You and me both, man. I've thought about that a lot, and I've made that my New Year's resolution for the last 5 years. But this is the year, I promise you. Thank you guys so much for joining us wherever it may be. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining us on YouTube or X. And thank you for joining us with our friends at SportsGrid. We'll be back on SportsGrid next week. We're going to talk to you with their Playing GM series a little bit later on this week. For Peter, for Peyton, who's hanging out, I'm Jack. We'll see you.
LeBron James gets that news today. What is today?
Today's his birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry? The greatest birthday gift that LeBron James has ever gotten is the reality, the smack in the face that he's no longer an all-star.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Like Alabama, right? Is there a team that scores more than Alabama? No, right? But they're actually an under team over the last couple of years because their numbers are so high. You get these Americans in Queens College or Denver. Who the hell's betting on them, right? Nobody. So the lines stay low. They're just no one's hopping all over them. But every time you see an Alabama game, you're betting over, but you're losing money because the numbers are so big.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Sometimes those coaches do get the axe regardless of what the owner said just a few short weeks ago. And sometimes, Joe, you can't have it both ways. Like a Jets fan, you probably want them to tank. They're doing a really good job of that by not even being competitive at this point. But at the same time, you sort of want it to be, yeah, we're not competitive winning games, but it looks like we have a future. We might have found our quarterback. We got a good foundation. Nothing is going right.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's out again. Anthony Davis is injured once again and is going to miss time with the Dallas Mavericks for a minor groin strain. Likely will miss a few games. And I don't even know what a few games is to Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis seems to always be missing time.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.